I'm excited that you're here today to learn a little bit more about how you can improve on your personal relationships. This presentation will help you to identify positive and negative relationships. And the big promise here is that small changes can make big differences in your relationship. Why listen to me? After I received my master's degree, I worked as a certified domestic violence counselor in the state of Colorado for a while. I've also been doing family therapy for a while. I've been a clinical social worker for more than 20 years. I want you to understand that, marriage is for the strong, right? Successful relationships won't happen by accident, but by taking some deliberate actions. Here's some reading materials that you might want to be interested. I'm taking a lot of my information from my experiences of teaching, but also I really use a lot of John Gottman's work. And these are 3 books that I would recommend. Why Marriages Succeed or Fail, which is a very detailed research approach. We tracked couples for more than 30 years, thousands of couples. This is research-based. 7 Principles of How Making Marriage Work. And 8 Dates is a neat one to help repair relationships if there's been problems in the relationships and we're kind of falling away. What does it mean when we say healthy relationships? We're going to target observable behaviors in your relationship. What's an observable behavior? Observable behaviors are things that anyone can see from the outside, not what you're telling them, but actually what you're doing. What your children can see you do, right? Simple, observable behaviors. What does your relationship look like to others? What is a healthy relationship? So, that's, the great question. What does it look like? Well, from the research, what we've found is it looks like this. Now, this is a simple graph that explains that over time along the bottom and is the time from left to right. From up to down is the growth and the strength. And so what you're seeing here is when we chart out relationships with couple, and this based on research, it's not the relationships that work kind of have this flow, this ebb and flow, this up and down, good times and struggles, good times and difficulties, good times and struggles. It's just like this natural flow in nature, radio waves, ocean waves, just that is what we see in relationships that last. We don't see relationships last that don't have any difficulties. What does the unhealthy relationships look like? Well, this is what it looks like when we chart it out. It's good and then drastic drops and long unhappiness. And then it gets good somehow, and again, drastic drops. Long pause of negative and down, and then up again and then down. Looks like peaks and valleys. It's when you map this out, that's a negative relationship. Because in reality, we're trying to just make small adjustments. So how do you obtain that happiness in your relationship without feeling you lose more than you gain? It's small adjustments and corrections. Another image I use often is this idea of Mount Everest. Why Mount Everest? Because sometimes I think relationships, successful relationships are like climbing Mount Everest. This image here of 2 people trying to climb up a mountain, frozen mountain here. What I see a lot in relationships is when they come in to see me in therapy, they're in a tough spot, right? They're there for a reason because they're struggling. But it's not uncommon for them to be showing up and only one of the partners is really involved. Just like the last couple I talked about, where maybe the spouse was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm not here for me. We're only here for her, or vice versa. That's usually not the case, right? 2 need to be working here. So if you're climbing a mountain, I've watched a lot of documentaries on mountain climbing. I don't do it, but it's not uncommon where you see people like, look, we're tied together here. And if you fall, I fall. And if you're going to go off on your own doing things that are going to hurt my survival, I may have to cut you loose. And unfortunately, I see couples that are at that point where one's going to cut loose the other one, or at the point where they're pulling each other down, and or one's trying to drag the other one along. So you really need to both focus on the relationship, and it's a partnership together to make this work. When I look at couples, they're struggling. It's not uncommon for them just to be thinking like, well, how did I get here? And it just happens over time. So we're going to talk about how to overcome that. What types of relationships are you in now? We talk about relationships. So I've just identified some here for you, right? Obviously your partners, your spouses, you're in relationships with your any children, maybe parents, brothers, sisters, big relationships with your pets, your co-workers, maybe some friends. And then you have those other relationships at acquaintance, neighbors, church, or volunteer service, maybe a sports team or two that you join. So these are the type of relationships that you're in. We need to understand, well, where are you at in this relationship? Have you ended up in a negative spot where you're kind of feeling like you're a victim, or are you a survivor? Do you understand that you can overcome these challenges, that you are stronger than you think you are, and that things can change? In my books, I talk about this idea of reframing. So sometimes therapists or so may talk to you and say, hey, well, you need to reframe the situation. Well, what does that mean? So this is what I did, is try to visually explain to you. What you have here is a picture frame that's all broken, and it says victim, or a nice picture frame that says survivor. This concept that, how do you reframe the challenge that you're in right now? The biggest problems, what I call the 3 T's: time, talk, and touch, in that order, and then money. I'm not going to go deep into money because that's a whole nother lesson that you need to work on. I hope you've gained some insight into the beginning of this course. In the next section, we're going to talk about the importance of time in your relationship.